Wow. As a kid, I used to love a mystery. Like, how did that come off the top of the bin? But I used to love reading good adventure books. I still love reading good murder and mystery books or watching kind of those sort of programs on telly. Because those books, as you go through it, there's a mystery that's being revealed. All the clues are there. Everything you need to see is in front of you. But it's often not till the end of the story where all the pieces come together and the answer is revealed and you recognize what was there in front of you all along. And perhaps you were just looking in the wrong place, perhaps you'd missed one of the clues, perhaps you'd been distracted to look at something else. I also quite love doing jigsaws, actually. I used to love it as a kid, occasionally dabble now. But what I love about that is you start with the corners, always start with the corners, then you do the edges, and then you can begin to fill in the middle pieces. And when you start, the whole picture's there, it's broken up, but you've got usually everything you need to make up the whole picture. But it's sometimes not until it's all pieced together that we recognize what the picture was to start with. I particularly love those pictures where you don't see the picture. You just get the puzzles and you've got to kind of work out what the picture is. But the mystery eventually is revealed. And all you're doing is recognizing what was there all along. One of my favorite games as a kid was a game called Dingbats. I don't know if you can still get it. But Dingbats works, you're shown a series of symbols or letters or clues, like different pieces, and you've got to work out by looking at the different pieces what the phrase is. You've got to recognize what's there. So we'll just have a quick go. So if we go to the first one up, Mark. All right. Say what you see. There's a hole in one. And so we get the phrase hole in one. Okay, let's have the next one. I fell 5 times. That popular phrase, I fell 5 times. No. Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower. It's a good one. It's all there. It's all there. Just got to recognize what's there. Okay, last one. Breakfast. They're breaking the word fast. Breakfast. All the clues are there. And when it's revealed, it's obvious, but we don't always recognize what's in front of us. And this morning, we're continuing our Easter theme, Who is this King? And we've read that this story of the disciples along the road happens on Easter Sunday. It happens, and these 2 disciples are having a heated discussion on the road to a place called Emmaus, which is about 7 miles away. And as they're talking, perhaps they thought they understood who Jesus was. Perhaps they thought they knew how God was carrying out his story. Perhaps they thought they'd got the big picture all together. But then a couple of days ago, on Good Friday, Jesus had died and was buried. And so now what they're doing is they're heading away from Jerusalem. They're heading away from where that all took place. They're heading away from where Jesus is, and they're trying to solve this mystery. They're trying to put all the pieces together, and they're trying to do it by themselves. And guess what? It's just not making sense. And you know, if we're trying to do things away from where Jesus is, then things aren't going to make sense. If we just quickly put this blanket up again. Ben, if you want to go behind and assume your mask, we won't get anyone up, but we're going to drop the blanket, and I want you all to shout out who you think is behind it, which character. So, up you go. Yep. You ready? 3, 2, 1. It's really hard to see. It's really hard to guess because Ben is facing the opposite way. We're not facing the right way. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that was it. If we're going the opposite way from where Jesus is, if we're not seeing him face to face, if we're traveling away from Jesus, things aren't going to make sense. We're not going to fully recognize who Jesus is. Whether that's trying to work out your purpose in life, whether that's thinking about the relationships you have and how you hold them, Whether you're working out, what do I do with my money? What do I do with my time? Even coming to church, reading the Bible, meeting together to talk about Jesus. If we're doing all those things on our own, without Jesus at the center, if we're traveling away from Jesus, even in all those things, then things aren't going to make sense. So my first question for us this morning is, where are we maybe heading away from Jesus? Where are we maybe trying to make sense of things by ourselves? Where are we heading away from Jesus? But then we read that a stranger joins them on the road. And he starts explaining to them all the scriptures, all the prophets, and he does this for the remainder of the 7 miles. And it says that as Jesus is explaining, they don't know it's Jesus yet, but even as this stranger is explaining to him, it says their hearts were burning within them. Their hearts were burning within them. And what I love about this is that even though these disciples are journeying away from where Jesus is, he comes and joins them. He doesn't wait for them to work it all out and go back to Jerusalem to find it. He meets them even as they're journeying away from him, and he begins to speak to them. And we need to know that when we're trying to do things away from Jesus, we need to know that he has not left us. He's still there. He's ready to talk and explain and guide and love and reveal himself to you. And so as they look at the scriptures and as they chat with each other, and although they perhaps don't recognize him fully and don't fully appreciate what it means yet, it says their hearts begin to burn within them. Their spirits soar. They want to know more and they want to be with him more. That's why they ask him to stay for dinner rather than carry on. They want to eat with him. And so as they begin to just hear his voice, effectively what they do is they open the door and invite Jesus to come in and eat with them. And as he breaks bread and they eat with him, they recognize him. That's what Revelation 3:20 says. If anyone knocks, opens the door, invites me, and I will come eat with them and them with me. And so it's as Scripture, as the Bible is shared, and as they talk with Jesus, and as bread is broken and offered, all in the context of friendship and community. They're not by themselves, they're in community. Suddenly, this mystery comes together. All the pieces fit. They encounter the risen Jesus, and everything changes as they recognize their meeting with the living Jesus who is now alive. Can I have another volunteer just briefly? Joel, you'll do. You'll do. You're perfect. Could you just go outside? Maybe Paul could just supervise the door. Could you just go outside, stand outside the window, and could you just tell us, no need to shout, just tell us your favourite colour and your favourite football team. Go. And if we could all look towards the window and try and hear what Joel's saying. No rush, Joel. Take your time. Did you get that? Just one more time. Anyone get that? Couple of people nearest him. Okay, Joel, in you come. Brilliant. Come up here. I've told you before, wear a coat when you go outside. Tell us your favourite colour.
Red.
And what's your favourite football team?
Arsenal.
Still? Oh. Okay, go and take a seat. It is obvious, but the closer we are, the closer encounter we have with Jesus, the more we will hear what he wants to say to us. And the truth is that the choice isn't between being in God's presence or not. We're always in God's presence. The choice is to be aware of it or not, to keep God at distance or actually draw near and intimacy with him. In Genesis 28, Jacob awakens from a dream and says, surely the Lord was in this place and I was not aware of it. God is in this place, in the city, in your lives. I'm so often unaware of it because I'm just not taking the time to draw close in intimacy. So second question, where is the space where Jesus is moving and speaking in your life? How are you making space as an individual? How are you making space within the body of the church to draw near to Jesus, to encounter the presence of the risen King? Are you positioning yourself in such a way that you can recognize Jesus? And finally, what happens next? Well, one version says, immediately they got up at once and returned to Jerusalem to share the good news. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'd walked 7 miles in the blistering heat and was sat down enjoying a meal, I wouldn't be getting up anytime soon, never mind immediately. I certainly wouldn't want to be running 7 miles back to where I just come from. But such was their joy of recognizing the risen King that it fueled them. It gave them an urgency. It gave them a passion. It gave them a purpose. Joel, can I borrow you just for one last time? Okay, we've already established that Arsenal is a love of your life. So could you just speak to us just for 15 seconds and just tell us some good things about Arsenal? Try and convince us that they're a good team. Why they're good? Who are the players? Just speak to us for a little bit about that.
Okay, they've got Bukayo Saka, the best footballer in the world. They are first in the Premier League. Hopefully not second.
And why do you love them? Why do you support them?
Because I was born near there.
Okay. And what do you think about the manager? Arteta.
Oh, he's convincingly good.
He's convincingly good. Stay there. Come back. Okay, now can you do the same thing and can you talk to me about gravel? Just tell us about gravel.
It's hard. Cars can go on it. Nothing else.
Nothing else to say. Okay, thank you. When we're passionate about something, when we've encountered something that we're passionate about, we can speak about it more freely. We want to share it. I mean, it's an artificial situation. I pulled Joel up on the stage. But if you get him on his own and talk about Arsenal, he'll talk the hind legs off you because he loves supporting them at least to the end of the season, or till Wednesday night probably, when Man City do one. But if we're passionate about something, if we've encountered something, if we've experienced something, then we want to share it. And so that's my third question, if that just comes up. What is our response to encountering Jesus? What is your response at the moment to the Jesus we know and love? Is it one of excitement and of passion? Or is it one that's a bit more akin to trying to describe gravel? What does that tell you about where your heart is? Maybe it points you back again to needing to recognize Jesus, to opening our eyes. And just imagine, we've got our APCM later this morning. We'll be looking back at the year gone and the year ahead, and there's some great stuff to celebrate and some great stuff to look forward to. But those things are only there because they're driven, or they need to be driven by recognizing Jesus. Otherwise, we might as well just be a charity. Nothing wrong with them, but that's all we'd be. Otherwise, we'd just be a bunch of nice people doing nice things to other people. But we've encountered the risen King. And the more we encounter him, the more we open our eyes and recognize, the more we allow our hearts to burn within us in community as well as individually. Just imagine if you encountered something more of Jesus this year. Imagine if your heart burned more this year. Imagine if you invited Jesus more into your life and into our gathering as community this year. What would change? What could change? What that was dead would come alive. So just looking at those three questions again. What's one thing you might do as you go from here? Maybe it's turning back to Jesus. Maybe it's at home, one day a week with your family, just reading the Bible together or praying together. Maybe it's just coming back to Jesus and saying, I just want to be in your presence, and making that effort to come to Kingdom Come or something when we don't feel like it. But whatever it is, what's the one thing that going from here you can put into place to help you recognize that the King and his presence is there with you the whole time, if only he would open our eyes and would allow him to do that. Let's stand together as we pray.